This is CBN News Watch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Heather Sells. President Trump spoke out this morning for the first time in days following the violence at the Capitol. He lashed out against impeachment efforts and defended his comments to supporters, encouraging them to march to the Capitol last week. The president called the comments totally appropriate. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips has more right now. Eric.
Well, Heather, what's surprising about the president's comments today is that we were expecting, based on House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy's words yesterday, for them to be different. McCarthy said during a phone conversation the president accepted some blame for what happened at the U.S. Capitol last Wednesday. But his words today had a completely different tone. This, as he declares a state of emergency in Washington, D.C., and as threats emerge against Capitol buildings in all 50 states.
With these images still fresh in everyone's mind, the president is now declaring a state of emergency stretching from January 11th through days after the presidential inauguration. At the same time, the FBI is warning of what's to come. State houses coast to coast boarding up, preparing for protests and potentially dangerous demonstrations. This as an unnamed armed group reportedly is calling for storming government buildings if President Trump is removed from office before January 20th. Still, efforts to impeach the president move forward. Evangelical leader Franklin Graham says impeachment would be a mistake.
I think it's a mistake because, on one hand, they talk about unity and bringing the country together, but yet you try to impeach the president a second time. It's just going to further divide the country.
They say that if we impeach, it could make matters worse. Matters can't get worse. We just had a potential coup attempt.
Even some of the president's staunchest allies have turned on him.
I do think the president committed impeachable offenses.
Graham says the actions at the Capitol that took 5 lives, including an officer, should be dealt with severely.
And I hope they'll be able to identify every one of them and prosecute them, put them in jail where they belong, because what happened was wrong.
And some 40,000 tips have come into the FBI indicating possible violence at Capitol buildings in states across the country beginning this weekend. The state of emergency in D.C. means more than 10,000 troops will be on the streets in the nation's capital to hopefully maintain the peace, Heather.
Right. Eric, how do you see all those National Guard troops changing the atmosphere in D.C.?
Well, hopefully it'll be a more secure atmosphere. I think that when you have more than 10,000 more people sort of guarding the peace and keeping an eye out, it should make a positive difference. Hopefully it won't have the reverse aspect of aggravating the situation. I will say that, it's better to have them there to hopefully deter any actions than to have them actually have to intervene. And I think that's the hope of the mayor, as well as other government officials who have ordered the troops on the streets there.
All right, a lot of different strategies they could employ. Well, what do you expect to happen with respect to impeachment? The House is calling on the vice president to make a move. Any chance that he will?
I think there's a very slim chance that the vice president is going to make a move, and that move would be invoking the 25th Amendment. I think he said at this point that he's not going to do that. I don't think it's going to happen. And will the House actually vote on it? Well, that's to happen tomorrow. You know that yesterday they drew up an article of impeachment against the president. Tomorrow is expected to be the vote. Are there going to be enough votes in the House to pass it? Likely, yes, there will be. But then the question becomes, if he is in fact impeached, will he be removed? And if he is removed, will that happen before the natural process of removal happens, meaning before the president-elect is inaugurated on January 20th? That's not likely to happen. So there are a lot of things that are up in the air right now. We know that President-elect Biden is kind of trying to walk a middle line where this is concerned, suggesting that if the House is going to move forward with this impeachment, that the removal process, in other words, the Senate trial, would happen perhaps after his first 100 days so that he would have a chance to make some headway in his new administration first.
All right, so much up in the air. Thank you for watching it, Eric Phillips.
All right.
Well, for more on how people of faith can think well about what is happening right now, we are joined by Dr. Ed Stetzer, the executive director of the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College. And Ed, thank you for joining us. I want to just go directly to ask you about one of the troubling aspects of last Wednesday, which was the Christian symbols that we saw in the crowd, the Christian flag, the Jesus flag. Some consider the use of these symbols in the attack to be blasphemous. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say anytime you see the use of a Christian symbol to promote something that's both wrong, violent, has led to death, and more, that's not the way the Lord would have us honor him through symbols or our prayers or our actions, whatever else it may be. We also recognize there are people in the crowd who may have believed. I'm not talking about those who rioted and rushed the Capitol. People in the crowd who may have believed that there was nefarious actions around the election. They were praying for that to change. They have a right to do so. I don't think there's evidence. Trump administration officials have actually said, from Bill Barr to the person in charge of the election, have said there's not been evidence of fraud that would overturn the election. People believe that. They want to go pray. I'm for people praying. I'm for peaceful protesting. But any time that has led to or been connected to or incited people to violate and really speak and to desecrate into the halls of our democracy, Christians universally can, should, and are calling that out as the sin it is. Well, I shouldn't say universally here. Some actually casually defending it, using language that sort of empowers it. But let me just say, for me and for the believers that I know, this is not the way the people of God act.
Mm-hmm. You wrote in USA Today this week about Christians engaging in multiple sins, including nationalism. How do you define nationalism, and how can churches avoid this trap?
Well, I think when you use the term nationalism, it depends on who's using it. When you talk more broadly, when nationalism means, for example, that your country and your faith are intertwined in such a way that it becomes, missiology is my field, it becomes syncretized. Ultimately, that's a misunderstanding of the nature of the gospel. God loves people, not countries. And I love my country, right? So I literally read the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. We participate in much patriotic activities. I love my country. I think it's worth celebrating. But I love Jesus far more. And when those two things conflict, I'm going to put Jesus before that. It's not my country, right or wrong. It's my Savior. Jesus is not coming back wrapped in an American flag. Jesus ultimately is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And Psalm 2 talks about nations who sort of rail against the rulership of God. Well, every nation's going to bow, and every nation's sinful and proud leaders will bow before King Jesus. And ultimately, we need to remember that our nation, lots of faults, lots of good, lots of faults, some of them really evident on display this week. And the answer has got to be calling people to trust and follow Jesus, not to sort of some re-engaged version of an American Jesus. No, the Jesus of the Bible.
All right, and we have just 30 seconds or so, but I want to ask you about conspiracy theories. We know that this is going on in the church. Pastor Tony Suarez posted about some of the outlandish ones today. How can pastors help lead their flocks away from this?
People are going to have to teach. Pastors are going to have to teach that Jesus said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me." And when we're gullible and easily fooled, when we're the people who are posting conspiracies and the next thing saying, "Oh, the resurrection's true," all those conspiracies are too, it undermines our witness. It causes people to question our credibility. I pray that we might be a people who disciple the mind, help people see more clearly the truth because they're people of the truth, because they're followers of Jesus, who himself is the truth.
Yeah, that critical thinking is so important right now. Dr. Ed Stetzer at Wheaton College, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And turning now to news on the pandemic, California's Disneyland is slated to become a major COVID-19 vaccination site. The park has been closed since the outbreak, but online reports say it will open to help serve the demand for vaccine distribution. Health officials say it should be ready later in the week. They believe the park's capacity will allow for thousands of Californians to get vaccinated every day. Well, pro-life advocates are worried about a bill in New Jersey that will allow late-term abortions up until the moment of birth. Lawmakers introduced the Reproductive Freedom Act in the Senate and Assembly last October. And Mark Martin joins us now with the latest. Mark.
Yeah, Heather, the bill is an effort to increase women's rights to abortion and allow non-physicians to perform the procedure. The measure indicates that, quote, a fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus may not be understood to have independent rights under any of the laws of the state. In addition, the bill specifies that any healthcare professional acting within the professional's lawful scope of practice and in compliance with generally applicable regulations is authorized to provide abortion care. The Beacon reports that the vice president of Morris County Right to Life, Lisa Hart, said the bill is the most extreme to ever be considered in New Jersey. She said, quote, it attempts to enshrine in perpetuity the ability to kill a baby in the womb through all 9 months. It removes the conscious protection for medical workers. It allows non-doctors to commit abortions. Young pregnant girls can get an abortion without their parents' knowledge or permission, risking their health, and it forces every one of us to pay for it. The founder and president of the biblically responsible investing company Timothy Plan, Art Alley, is also speaking out against the bill.
And what a horrible beginning of what could be a snowball rolling downhill we're seeing with the governor of New Jersey pushing for this bill to remove all restrictions on abortion at any time. My gosh, how far we have fallen in the United States of America.
Democratic Governor Phil Murphy declared his support for the bill when it was first introduced. He said, quote, the Reproductive Freedom Act will remove barriers to reproductive health as well as expand access to contraception while reaffirming choice. Together we stand unwavering in our commitment to work towards reproductive freedom for all New Jerseyans. Heather, back to you.
Thanks, Mark. In yesterday's program, we used a video clip of President Trump's rally speech that was taken from a different source rather than the original event. Unknown to us, this video had been edited so that portions of President Trump's speech were out of order. CBN did not edit the video in this manner. We regret not fact-checking this video prior to using it, and we apologize for this oversight. Coming up, corporate America draws even stronger lines of discrimination in the political and culture wars.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern Gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
The social media company Parler is taking Amazon to court after Amazon suspended Parler, citing concerns about incendiary content that incites violence. Meanwhile, Amazon and other top-tier companies like American Express, AT&T, Best Buy, and Verizon are stopping, at least temporarily, donations to Republicans in Congress who challenge the certification of President-elect Biden's victory. Well, for more on corporate America and the direction it's headed, we are joined by Justin Danhoff. He is the general counsel for the National Center for Public Policy Research. Justin, thanks for joining us.
It's always nice to talk with you, Heather.
Thanks. You, of course, have followed the leftward track of corporate America for years now. And what is your take on these social media companies that suspend apps or accounts like the president's? How can we encourage them to encourage free speech but not become havens for violent extremists?
Yeah, so it's very interesting what they've done to Parler, right? It's hypocritical. Facebook itself, a few months back, blamed itself for violent rhetoric on its own platform. But other tech companies didn't gang up on Facebook and kick them off the internet. And what we're seeing is quasi-government action, which may lead to some liability for these corporations. And what I mean by that is take a look at, for example, Apple, which took Parler off of its App Store, right? Well, in China, they take things like the New York Times off the App Store at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party. They took other news sites off of its App Store at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party that the Hong Kong freedom fighters were using. So there they are quite literally acting as an arm of the government. And there's a parallel here because there was calls by high-ranking liberal political officials here in the United States to remove President Trump from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and those were then acted upon. And so it's a very interesting parallel, what we have here, where liberal politicians are demanding actions and social media companies are following through. It's very similar to the way that these companies operate in communist regimes, which is a very, very dangerous totalitarian state that we find ourselves in. When we have, free speech advocates like the ACLU, a far left organization, saying perhaps this is a step too far, we really have an oligarchy of companies that are acting in such a way.
Well, they have so much power. It really is incredible. I want to also ask you about corporate America suspending political donations right now to some conservatives that back the Biden certification challenge. Do you see that as temporary? What might be happening with the world of political giving?
Well, I see it as a double standard, right? All of us condemn the violence that happened in the Capitol. Every thinking person does that. If you don't, then you're just plain wrong at this point. But where were these moral companies over the summer when Kamala Harris and others were encouraging the BLM protests that attacked over 150 other federal buildings, caused damage to private businesses all throughout America? When liberal politicians were egging those protests on, these soulless, godless companies said nothing.
Justin, we just have about 30 seconds left, but I do want to ask you, just what do you see going forward from corporate America now that we have got, a Democratic White House and both chambers of Congress?
I think we're going to see a similar pattern to what we saw under the Obama administration, where big business teams up with big government to grow. And in this time and in this day and age, that growth is going to be to continually suppress conservative thought, conservative groups, and conservative individuals. I'm afraid that that's a totalitarian mix that's very dangerous for right-of-center thought in 2021 and going forward.
All right, Justin Danhoff, we thank you for your time and your insights.
Thank you, Heather.
Still ahead, the Alabama Crimson Tide celebrates its 13th national championship. A closer look at the team dynamics and even faith that carried them through the season.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Championship unlike any before it because the season was so unprecedented.
The Alabama Crimson Tide celebrates the school's 13th national championship last night with a 52-24 win over Ohio State. It comes after a perfect season with no losses, where the Tide played all SEC conference games, then faced Notre Dame and Ohio State in the postseason. Heisman Trophy winner and game offensive MVP Devontae Smith talked about their focus and the reason they came out on top.
I wouldn't be able to do none of this without my teammates or without God. Just coming here, I just put in the work every day, no matter what the situation was, just believing in my coaches and them putting me in the right situations just to make plays.
And TBN sports anchor Sean Brown, back by popular demand, joins us now to talk about this championship game. Sean, first of all, I know you said you were pulling for Ohio State last night, which we know is hard hit by COVID, but this Alabama team had to impress you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're Alabama. As Coach Saban said last night, this is probably the best team he's ever coached. But I've heard that before. But it was a really, really loaded team. And I'm not quite sure why some analysts were saying the defense wasn't up to snuff. I mean, they've given up a lot of points over the season. But last night, oh, my goodness, man. Ohio State looked great in the first half. Defense showed up big in the second half, isolating them to holding them just 24 points. And there you have it. Alabama wins another championship. They were just stacked. Of course, you've got to talk about Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy winner, just phenomenal. 3 touchdowns, I believe. And, of course, Najee Harris with 3 touchdowns as well. Both men of faith, both put in the work. And just a phenomenal game. I thought it was going to go the distance, at least up into the third quarter. Of course, Devontae Smith was out for the second half. But, hey, man, they had so many weapons around him, it didn't matter.
Pretty amazing. Of course, Devontae Smith mentioned his faith, and he did so at the Heisman ceremony. His mother and father spoke then, and you could really see the faith foundation that they gave him. Tell us what we know about him and his speaking out on his faith.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, these guys, a lot of times we see them on the national stage, whether it's playing in college football or at the next level in the NFL. But there's a story that happens before that where they're getting all their character built up from their parents, from their grandparents, of course, their family, and all their high school coaches and whatever programs that they're a part of leading up to college. And a part of that for these guys, or excuse me, for Devontae Smith is his faith. And it comes out on the big stage. It comes out when you're talking to him. And it's nothing that they would just throw out there and say, oh, yeah, I want to give it up to the man upstairs. It's embedded in his language, and you can tell it's a part of his life. And they need it because it is a struggle to get to that D1 level, to get to that D2 or D3 level, wherever the Lord would lead you. It's a process, and they recognize that when they get to that level.
Well, of course, sportscasters are calling this possibly one of the greatest college football teams of all time. What are your thoughts on that, and what's Alabama's secret sauce?
You know what? the players, a lot of the players give credit to God, but you've got to have the tools. You've got to be able to pick talent. Nick Saban and his staff over the years have been able to do that. I have to shout out offensive coordinator Steve. I got to make sure I say his name correctly. Steve Sarkisian. They call him Coach Stark. Coach Sark. Did a phenomenal job calling plays last night, which allowed those players to shine. I mean, Devontae Smith, sometimes Ohio State's defense couldn't even find out where he was. All of a sudden, he's open, he pops up with the ball, comes down, and it's just so deadly after he catches the ball. And so big up to the coaches, specifically the OC, Steve Sarkisian.
Right. And, of course, the coach and the team members just kept talking about their commitment and their love for one another throughout this very different COVID season. Do you think that also contributed? Absolutely.
Listen, I've been to Alabama. I've been and seen a little of how they work. Coach Saban is all about family. It's always been about cultivating a family atmosphere so that they look after one another and that happens off the field. It happens off the field so that when they're in a game, you see it when you see it on the field. And it's hard work, but if you can get guys to buy into what your program is all about, and it is family, it starts there, which Coach Saban has done. It comes out, and that's just a tribute to the success of this program.
All right, Sean Brown, we are out of time, but thank you for your time. We'll be right back.
All right, thank you, Heather.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Ephraim Graham. Welcome to Studio 5.
Get on it.
All that's new and now in the world of uplifting entertainment with celebrity interviews.
There's a higher contribution I will make.
Musical performances.
I'll give you my best praise.
Plus movie and TV news.
See it and be uplifted.
On Studio 5. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern at cbn.com/Studio 5.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Believe it or not, the #1 Apple podcast right now is not a news show or murder mystery. It is a Bible study podcast from the Catholic group Ascension Presents. It is called The Bible in a Year, and it's hosted by Father Mike Schmitz.
There are not only a bunch of powerful stories in the Bible, but there's also the story of the Bible. And I think that is probably what people are realizing they need, maybe more than they have in the past.
The 25-minute podcast includes Father Schmitz reading the scripture and then giving some historical context and theological reflection. We'll have more on this app on the 700 Club. That's it for us. Thanks for joining us.